Every oath in the Quran points at something you can see: the sun, the moon, the night when it covers, the dawn when it breathes, mountains, ink, the fig, and the olive. Allah swears by what is visible, tangible, undeniable, proof you can point to with your finger. Then, in one of the shortest chapters in the entire Quran, he swears by something you cannot see, cannot hold, cannot point to: time, Al-Asr. And in the same breath, before explaining a single thing, he hands down a verdict on the entire human race. You are losing, not some of you, not the disbelievers among you. Man, Al-Insan, every single descendant of Adam, is in loss. That is the claim. 3 verses, 14 words in Arabic. And inside those 14 words is a complete description of how a human life either becomes worth something or evaporates into nothing. This surah was revealed in Makkah early, in the period when the message was still sharp, still compressed, still hitting like a blade before it had room to expand into longer explanations. The companions understood something about it that most people today don't. There's a report preserved about how, whenever 2 of the Prophet's companions, peace be upon him, would meet, they would not separate from each other until one of them had recited this entire surah to the other, and then exchanged the greeting of peace. 3 sentences. And grown men, companions of the messenger himself, treated those 3 sentences as something too important to part ways without saying out loud to one another. Imam Ash-Shafi'i, centuries later, said something that should stop you completely. If people only reflected on this surah, it would be enough for them. Not the entire Quran, not years of study. This surah alone, properly understood, is sufficient. So, the question becomes obvious. What is actually happening inside these 3 verses that a scholar of Shafi'i's caliber would say something that bold? Start with the oath itself. Wal Asr, by time. Ibn Kathir, in his tafsir, defines Al-Asr precisely. It is the time in which the movements of the children of Adam occur, whether those movements are good or evil. Not time as an abstract philosophical concept. Time as the medium your actions actually happen inside of. Every choice you make, every word you speak, every hour you spend, it happens inside this thing Allah is swearing by. There's also a secondary opinion recorded, transmitted by Imam Malik from Zayd bin Aslam, that Al-Asr refers specifically to the evening, the tail end of the day, the hour when the sun is dropping and the day's work is closing out. But the dominant, more widely held position is the first one: time itself, the whole field in which human deeds unfold from birth to death. Why does this matter? Why does the specific definition change anything? Because if Al-Asr is just time in the broadest sense, then the oath is doing something very specific. Allah is calling the very thing you are inside of, the thing you cannot step outside of, cannot pause, cannot get more of by wanting it, as a witness against you. You don't get to argue with this witness. You don't get to claim it didn't happen. Time recorded everything. It is, in itself, evidence. Think about what makes an oath powerful in the first place. When someone swears by something, they're elevating it, saying, "This thing is significant enough that I call on it." When Allah swears by the sun, He's pointing at the sun's power, its constancy, its role in sustaining the visible world. When He swears by ink and the pen in other surahs, He's pointing at knowledge, at the written word, at what gets preserved, So when he swears by time, what is he pointing at? He's pointing at the one resource every human being has been given, an identical, non-negotiable quantity per day, and identical, completely unknown quantity across a lifetime. You don't know how much of it you have left. Nobody does. The richest man alive and the poorest man alive both get 24 hours today. Neither can buy a single extra second. And whatever each of them does with those hours, that is being recorded by the very thing Allah just swore by. This is where the Sufi tradition adds something that sharpens the verse rather than distracting from it. If you want to support this channel, check out our latest book, The 40-Day Istighfar Protocol. It will change your life. Link in comments and in description. Let's get back to the video. Ibn Ata'illah al-Iskandari in the Hikam writes, "What has passed of your life cannot be replaced, and what you have used well cannot be priced." Read that again slowly. He's not saying time is valuable in some generic motivational sense. He's saying two very specific things at once. First, there is no refund. The hour you wasted an hour ago is gone, in a way nothing else in your life is gone. You can rebuild wealth, you can repair a relationship, you can recover health, but you cannot recover the hour itself. Second, and this is the part people miss, whatever hour you did spend well has no equivalent price. It cannot be bought back if lost, and it cannot be matched in value by anything you could trade for it. Time is the one currency that is simultaneously the most fragile and the most valuable thing you hold, and the surah opens by swearing on exactly that. Now move to the second part of the anatomy, the verdict itself. Inna al-insana lafi khusr. Verily, man is in loss. This word, khusr, is not a soft word. It doesn't mean man is struggling or man faces difficulty. Ibn Kathir is direct about this. Khusr means loss and destruction. This is commercial language, the language of a transaction gone wrong, of capital that has been spent, and nothing of value received in return. Allah is describing the default condition of human existence, not the exception, the default, as a losing trade. You came into this world with capital. The capital was time. And without intervention, that capital simply bleeds out and disappears. And what you're left holding at the end is nothing. Sit with how absolute that is for a second. Before any exception is mentioned, before any escape route is offered, the baseline statement about humanity is, you are in loss. Every person reading or hearing this verse, by default, by simply existing inside time without doing anything else, is hemorrhaging the one asset they cannot replace. That includes the wealthy man who thinks his money insulates him. That includes the busy man who thinks his productivity exempts him. That includes the worshiper who assumes ritual alone covers the debt. The verse doesn't carve out exceptions yet. It states the universal condition first, brutally, with no cushioning. This is why the third verse matters so much, because it's the only thing standing between every human being and that verdict of loss. And this is where the anatomy gets specific, because the exception isn't vague. It's not, except those who are good people, or except those who mean well. It is 4 precise, sequential conditions, and missing any one of them breaks the chain. Illa ladina amanu, except those who believe. This is the foundation. Not belief as a passive intellectual position you hold somewhere in the back of your mind, but belief as the thing that reorients everything else that follows. Ibn Kathir frames this as those who believe in their hearts, meaning the internal condition has to be real before anything external can count for anything. A person can perform every other item on this list and still be in loss if the heart underneath it is hollow. Wa amilu salihat, and do righteous deeds. Belief that produces nothing is incomplete by the surah's own logic. Ibn Kathir specifies this is righteous deeds performed with the limbs, meaning belief has to translate into the body, into action, into something that actually happens in the world and costs you something. The heart believes, the limbs work. Both together, not one substituting for the other. Wa tawasaw bil haqq, and recommend one another to the truth. Notice the shift here. The first two conditions are personal, your belief, your deeds. This third condition forces you outward, toward other people. Ibn Kathir describes this as commanding obedience to Allah and forbidding what is prohibited, meaning the verse will not let you privatize your faith. You are required to extend it toward others, to actively encourage the people around you toward what is true and away from what corrupts. A person who believes correctly, acts correctly, but stays completely silent and disengaged from everyone else around them is still missing a piece of the formula. Wa tawasaw bis sabr, and recommend one another to patience. And this is the piece that explains why the third condition is even survivable. Because the moment you start commanding good and forbidding evil toward other people, you generate resistance. People don't like being told the truth, especially about themselves. Ibn Kathir is specific about what this patience is responding to: the plots, the harms, and the hostility of those who resent being corrected. So, the surah anticipates the cost of verse 3 before you even reach verse 4, and prescribes the antidote in advance. Patience here isn't passive endurance. It's the thing that keeps a person commanding truth, even after they've been burned for it the first time, the second time, the 10th time. 4 conditions. Belief anchors the heart. Deeds anchor the body. Truth-telling anchors your relationship to other people.